What's up, everyone, and welcome to the RRBG podcast. In this episode, I talked to the Drama King himself, Matt Rehwoldt, formerly known as Aiden English in WWE. He's currently a color commentator on Impact. He's also a video game streamer, involved with the Overwatch 2 League. We talk a lot about gaming. We talk a lot about pro wrestling. He also has a channel called Wrestling with Whiskey, so we talk a lot about whiskey as well. And we talked a bit about mental health and dealing with social media and all of those things. It was a really great conversation. I hope you guys enjoy it. Make sure to follow him on all the things at the Drama King Matt. If you're here watching this on YouTube, click like, click the little heart, click the bell for notifications, subscribe if you haven't done so already. Follow us on social media at RRBG Podcast. And if you get a chance, check out our Patreon page. Go to patreon.com/RRBG, where you'll find some exclusive content there with some interesting rewards. I'm planning on revamping the whole thing for 2023, so be on the lookout for that. And I want to thank you for watching and listening. Cheers. What's up, everyone? Welcome to the RRBG podcast. Today, I am being joined by the Drama King himself, Mr. Matt Rehwoldt. Did I say Rehwoldt right, or is it Rehwoldt?
You did, actually.
Okay, cool.
Which is amazing. Normally, that used to be my old telemarketer alarm, was when they'd be like, "Is Mr. Rehwoldt there?" It's like, okay, click.
Yeah, nope, goodbye. I don't need to know. How are you, first and foremost?
I'm good, man. I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. This is our first show back in the studio because we had some crazy construction that happened. There was a water pipe that blew up, and they had to tear everything down. And
the water is the worst.
I know.
My God, it's my worst enemy. So many. It's like affecting me. It follows me everywhere I go, like from apartment to house to whatever. I have stupid water issues. It's like I always love it that it's this thing that signifies like life, right? It is the essence of life is water. We are 70% water. We need water to live. Yet it's so utterly destructive too, just for existing. It doesn't even need to like bowl over your house. Just literally too much water sitting on your walls or your windows. It eradicates it's such a weird dichotomy of just like it's an absolute symbol of life and destruction all in one.
Oh yeah, and for nerds like us, like
we're getting deep, baby.
It damages our goods that we have on our walls.
Oh yeah,
you know,
moisture is bad for collectibles and all that. Absolutely.
Yeah, man. And you know, I tried to get them away from, like, when the inspectors came there. I was like, it's just a little. There's just a little like mark on the ceiling. It'll be fine. They're like, nope, we got to tear down the entire living room. I'm like,
yeah. God, I know. It's like you're glad that they're experts and that because you would hate to have gone another couple of months and it all caved in.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you're like, I didn't want to have to move any of this and change it all around. Yeah. I know. I get it.
So we have a lot to talk to you about. I made a list of different topics here, but I want to start off with the obvious one, which is wrestling. And
sure.
I know that you were semi-retired from the ring, but I mean, it seems like you're kind of back as of, October. I saw some matches get posted or something like that. Am I wrong?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I haven't wrestled since May, and since September, I've been straight up like, I'm not taking any.
Okay. Because I saw some like YouTube, and I think it said October, but I could have read that wrong. It's 2022.
It could have gotten posted maybe at a different time or something. It could be an old clip or whatever. There was also a brief miscommunication I had with a promoter who I was doing a signing with, who assumed I was going to wrestle a match as well. And this was like already after I'd already said like, hey, I'm not wrestling anymore for the foreseeable future. And like they went, like I literally got alerted in a Twitter post and was like, "Hey Mac, like from my opponent, like I can't wait to wrestle you. I'm going to show you the drama or something." And I'm like,
"Oh my God.
Wait, what?
Cutting promos on you and shit."
Say come again? Like, so I sent an email. They're like, "Oh, you weren't going to do that?" I'm like, "No, we would have had to talk about a different price then." Like, if that was the case, so that was the one little miscue snafu I've had. But yeah, otherwise, I believe it was either August or September is when I kind of made the full-on declaration that at least for the foreseeable future, I was focusing on more of the broadcast side of things.
Okay. And I mean, I'm sure if you've made an announcement about it, like, but I guess I didn't see it, but why the choice to step away from the ring and completely, because there's people that still do both.
Yeah? Yep.
So I mean, why the choice to decide to not be in the ring?
Well, I mean, so it's one of those things where everywhere I'd gone, it kind of kept pushing me there. And it's one of those things. Sometimes you listen to life, like there's the old adage of like the guy banging on the door, let me in. Why won't anybody answer this door?
Bray Wyatt?
Like,
no, I'm just kidding. I'm kidding.
But like whoever, like spirit, God, whoever you want to be, it's like, yeah, but I opened a window for you. It's right over there, but you keep banging on this door. It's just like sometimes we don't see these opportunities because we're too hard-headed about certain other things. And well, I didn't ever necessarily feel that way. I was that way with wrestling. I know some people can be like, just that's the only thing and everything like that. To me, it just helped me focus. And it was because, man, WWE, I did it. Then when I was released from there, I started working with both New Japan Pro Wrestling and Impact. And in time, relatively short order, they both asked if I would be willing to, hey, can you jump onto the commentary? And again, and I love it. I've just said this time and time again, I fell in love with that side of the business. But it was just like, okay, this business, this life keeps pushing you in this direction. And two, honestly, and I'm not trying to get too woe is me, but like I didn't have a whole lot of interest from promoters in wrestling. That was not what people wanted to see Matt Rehwoldt do. You know what I mean? At least that's as far as I could tell.
Okay.
Because and so it's from a life perspective, from a business perspective. And yeah, and like I wanted to lean more into that side of things. I really like it. I have a whole new like appreciation for the other side of the business. I get to learn more all the time and everything like that. But yeah, between that and it allowed me also more opportunity to start exploring more of that stuff outside of wrestling too. If it wasn't, not like I said, I wasn't having bookings every weekend, but like that kind of a thing where if I have to 100% be all in on wrestling, then I wouldn't have had as much opportunity to look at other outside stuff.
Yeah, no, and it's very smart of you too, because I mean, you're expanding your horizons in that sense with the broadcasting, with the streaming, and all of the different. Because a lot of wrestlers, you see them, they overstay their welcome or they overstay their body's abilities, and they end up being this like sad old, like I don't know what else to do with my life because I never expanded. This is it. This is all I know. And, it's a hard mental health kind of thing to deal with where you're like, what am I if I'm not a wrestler? You know what I mean? And you've moved on past that to a point where, not that you'll never go back. Like you said, it's foreseeable future,
right?
But at least you're setting yourself up for the future,
Yeah. And then that is it. And I'll be honest, as much as I've always loved wrestling and everything, I obviously fell in love. That's what put me in this business in the first place, put me in the ring for 10 years and all this stuff. I have that crazy passion for it. But I will say one of my biggest phobias in this business was being that guy, was being Mickey Rourke from The Wrestler.
Right.
Having that, I think a lot of us do, but like, I know, bro, so some of my friends, they love it. They're like, I don't care. I'll be 60 taking bumps. I'm making $50. I don't care. I'm like, I don't. For me, no, man, I do. I want to walk comfortably until I'm 70 if I can. And it's not worth it to me to just cling and claw onto that side of it. I'm like, man, I can sit in this chair. I can learn more and I can do this part of it for the next 20 years until, and if that's what I want to do, that's the other side of it that I really like. So I'm balance has always been a key in my life, as I am never a gung ho in one solitary direction. So, and I think that's where a lot of people see a lot of success is because they go full bore. You pour your entire life into one single solitary thing. But I think with that comes a lot of turmoil and chaos as well. And so like for those people who can withstand that and live through that and see that fruition, great. For me as a human being, my entire life has always been trying to keep things as balanced as I can, mentally, emotionally, physically. So it may not be as like, I don't know, that long-term like dream level, like some people have it as, but like to me, I prefer a more balanced lifestyle. So that helps me with that too.
Hell yeah. And you've got a unique voice, whether people like it or not, like that's a matter of opinion, but like you have a very unique voice. And so you could take that to different places, you know, and
exactly. And that's what I'm trying to do as well. Again, talking about more about expanding into other things. So
yeah, like voice acting, you know, you could anything like that. So
yeah,
that's awesome, man. I'm glad to hear it. I mean, I watched some of the clips of the more recent, like I watched the Rich Swann match that you had, and still, you know, you're still in great shape and you know, all of that. So it would be a shame to never see you wrestle again, but you know, do what you got to do, and then maybe sometime in the future, who knows what the future holds, you know.
That was the other thing. Is like I want it to be right, and like there were a couple opportunities that did come up to me, and I'm just like, it's not worth it for me to get up off the table to do it. And that's not trying to be big headed about it or whatever, but I'm like, I don't want to just do these things that don't mean anything.
Yeah,
I don't know. I want to. So like, if there's the right opportunity, I'm a big fan storytelling. There's great that, you know. I had an offer to say, hey, we want you to wrestle this. And I'm like, okay, but are you just having me wrestle, or is this part of something bigger? And they're like, well, we need someone this weekend. I'm like, only time in my entire career I've ever said, no, thank you.
Yeah.
Because I was like, there are so many other guys. I'm already doing a role on the show.
Yeah. Sitting
here, right? There's so many guys in that locker room or in that you could choose from that could go and have a great match and everything like that. Feature one of them. I'm set. You know what I mean? Like it seemed like just for a match to have a match, it didn't seem like the right place to disrupt what I had going on at the commentary table, kind of thing.
And that's very important. That you are able to say no, that you can acknowledge that, hey, this isn't good for me. Like I just had a chat with our mutual friend CVV, Mr. Van Vliet, and we were talking just about that specifically, where it was, you know, getting to a point in your life where you can say no to certain things. Because in the beginning, you want to say yes to everything because you want to be involved and you want to, you know, be a part of it. But you know, you're at a part of your career where that's not even necessary, and that's great that you got there.
Yeah, absolutely. And you just said it at the beginning. I think it is important when you're first getting into anything. I am a big person of that say yes mentality. Like learn everything, learn every aspect. That goes, dude, learn behind the scenes, learn to wrestle, learn how to set up rings, learn how to do audio, learn how to do cameras, whatever, take tickets, all that. I'm a huge believer in say yes, learn everything. But yeah, when you've had some time under your belt and everything like that, you have to learn then what's good for you and what's good for your career and what's good for your momentum wherever you're going in your life. So 100% I agree with that.
Yeah, man. Now, what are your thoughts on, and I promise we're not going to talk wrestling the whole time.
Please.
What are your thoughts on what's going on? Because to me right now, I've been a wrestling fan since I was a kid. There was a brief moment, not a brief moment, it was a pretty long moment in time where I stopped. Pretty much
lapsed. A lapsed fan.
I did. Yeah, I tapped out after I left with Stone Cold. When he left, I left. I stopped watching.
Okay, I was gonna say, I was like, what did a lot of people have the moment of like, man, this happened, I just couldn't watch anymore.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't specifically that. It was Stone Cold left, and I was like, oh man, that's a bummer. And then I think it was right around the time where I started dating and like going out. And,
sure.
You know, yeah. Like,
I hear that.
I'm going to go focus on this for a while. And then my friends kept insisting and, you know, invited me to parties to go watch like a Mania or something. And I was like, I'm not into it anymore. And then finally I caved and I got back into it. And what really did it was going to a local indie show, which I had never done. I had only seen my whole life. It was always WWE, WCW, whatever was on my TV, but I had never been to a live indie show, and it really like opened my mind. Like, oh wow, this is kind of like a band, like a punk rock show type of deal. Everybody's on their feet, people are flying. You know, it was a different vibe, and really got me into it. But I've kind of lost. Oh, okay. So what I was saying was that I feel like right now this is the craziest time in pro wrestling with. You know, AEW's doing their thing. WWE's under a new regimen. New Japan is more relevant than ever right now because they're kind of the glue holding both of those companies. Like they're working together almost. Impact is working with AEW. Like there's just stuff that's happening that everybody's kind of working together, which is unprecedented. It's never happened before, like in that way, where that level of collaboration. What are your thoughts on that? Like, is that, you know, are you more of an old school territories guy where this is, you know, harming the business, or is this good?
No, I mean, I think it's I'm sure if you dug down deep, and I know there's people out there who do and everything, there's probably some people who say it's bad. I honestly, it can't be anything but good overall.
Mm-hmm.
I think to see that kind of work, I know WWE probably does it the least, but even then, I thought one of the coolest things I've seen recently is Shinsuke going to work Noah
Mm-hmm.
to as part of. I mean, obviously that's a very special. Muda is retiring and everything like that, but still, that kind of thing. Even a year ago, right?
Yeah.
Or let alone 5-10 years ago would probably never happen, even in an extra special scenario like that. So seeing things like that is very, very cool. I came into like Impact right in the latter half of like their work with AEW, and even as of lately, as most recent as our most last live special, we still have people like Frankie Kazarian still working with us and everything like that. And obviously seeing all the crossover, a huge, great relationship with Impact and New Japan and everything too. So I love it. It gives me also like it's a wide breadth. So no matter where I go, I don't feel out of place too. So it's like, oh, I know, most of these people that you've seen them before, they've crossed paths. So you can tell a lot of stories.
Yeah.
So that whether you want to keep it focused on all the history in this company, or depending on the scenario, man, they've faced each other here, and here. There's a lot more like a spider web of storytelling that we can do now. Now that there's these people that we're seeing pop up on TV, your internet screen, wherever. Internet screen? How old am I? Oh my God.
Yeah.
That was such a grand
in the moving pictures.
Your fancy internet screens. Good Lord, I'm a gigaboomer. No, but yeah, on your computer, your phone, whatever like that. The people are all over the place. And so to me, it's more stories we can tell.
Yeah. It's been, fascinating to me to see how WWE has changed in that sense with, like the other day I was watching the latest pay-per-view Survivor Series, and they were like talking about the Bullet Club and like the history and how like AJ and Finn go back to New Japan. I'm like, what? That would have never happened like 2 years ago. So it's really cool to see. And, as competition is important, obviously it makes everybody elevate their game. But also, I don't think it's a bad thing where people are kind of crisscrossing and, there's work everywhere, and that's good.
Yes.
Yeah.
Good for the business.
Good for the business, which ultimately it's still a pretty niche business. I try and convince. I have friends that are like, why do you watch wrestling? That's, why are you watching that stuff? It's fake. It's for kids or whatever. And I'm like, however, it's the number one trending thing on social media every time it's on television. They're obviously not that niche. It's obviously important enough to where it's trending worldwide. So maybe pay attention to what's going on there. You got some of the world's biggest stars there.
And a lot of the thing is that people, I feel like we're finally, and I think this is true of like the current crop of talent as well. But like, we always talk about, especially like with WWE, Vince McMahon, everyone talks about like his dream. He wanted wrestling to be on par with Hollywood, right? He wanted to be in that the TV, the HBOs, the Hollywood. He wanted all of that. And while it's never going to be the same thing because it is such its own unique niche, I think with the explosion of WWE and at the time WWF and WCW stuff in the 90s, those Monday Night Wars, all that stuff, the people who were kids during that in those formative years are now your people who are your peer in how they are your full grown actors and stuff like that. So it's not back when he was first trying to do that in the 90s and stuff, like even the early 2000s, the people who were kind of in the meat of Hollywood and TV and everything probably didn't grow up on it because wrestling was super, super niche, even, back in the 70s and 80s and stuff like that. But now we have an entire generation of actors and comedians and media personality who all grew up on wrestling like we did because they're in their 30s, right? They're in their 30s, their 40s, maybe late 20s and stuff like that. So I just think you're seeing more of the crossover because there's way more wrestling fans who are in that mainstream media, even if they haven't watched in 10 years old, they were, so they get it. So you have less people like poo-pooing it, if you will, than you did in like the early 2000s, maybe, or even in the 90s at certain points. As just like, now everyone's like, oh yeah, I remember that. I loved that when I was 15 or whatever. Like, so like, I get it. Like they can admit that they think it's something that they thought was cool. So I think we've kind of overcome that a little bit for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I feel that applies to pretty much everything in my life growing up. Like, I was a big video game, nerd, and back when I was a kid, that was frowned upon, kind of like, oh, you stupid nerd. Now it's
Dude,
one of the biggest things
nerd
in the
culture.
world.
Yeah, dude, nerd culture in general, like niche, finding your like that has grown so much that like we luckily we've grown so much more accepting of just like, hey, you're into what you're into kind of culture, as opposed to like you have to like X, Y, and Z.
Mm-hmm.
That kind of binary way of thinking that we lived in for so long. It's like, oh, you're a nerd and that's bad if you like this, or you're a dork, you're cool if you like this, or do this, or play this sport, or like this music, so on. So now it's not perfect, but we've become so much more accepting of, hey man, like you're into what you're into. You like that kind of music, you like that kind of wrestling, like that kind of comic book, that kind of TV shows, whatever, blah 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 blah. It's become much more of it, and that's the one thing, man. The internet can be a nasty place.
Oh yeah,
but it has allowed people to find your people anywhere.
Yeah, yeah.
You know what I mean? As much rigmarole as it causes, like you can find your people, your community somewhere, some message board, some forum. So if you like something, you are not alone.
Yeah,
that's for sure.
Now, that kind of is a good segue into what you're doing with streaming. I know that you're doing a lot of gaming streaming. I think you're involved with like Overwatch and all that.
Mm-hmm.
Now, when you started doing that, I've heard this from musicians that not transition, but start exploring the Twitch world. It's a different audience for them. Like the people that listen to their music is a small percentage of the people that are following them on Twitch. Like they had to build a whole new fan base. Did you find that when you started streaming more, like did you had to start from scratch, or did you like once you started, was there a huge following already, kind of based off of your wrestling?
Yeah, I would say more that it was almost more the opposite. It was like the people came to the channel because of wrestling.
Oh, okay.
And I talk a lot about wrestling. I know there are some people like who they go there and they don't want to talk about wrestling, and I kind of had that vibe, but I don't actively usually bring it up a lot, but I'm totally always willing to talk about it because it is my life, it is my livelihood. But no, for me it was more the opposite, because as I got more and more into it and building like inroads into some of these communities within especially esports and gaming and stuff like that, I wanted to focus more on that. And people would come in. I think I've actually driven people away because, again, all 99% of my social media, Instagram, Twitter, is all from my time developed in WWE. Let's be honest. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So like people, if they see me go live, they come in. I'm not talking about what Bray Wyatt's doing. They leave. I think because I want to talk about the competitive gaming scene that I'm in and all this stuff like that. So, like, I've don't get me wrong, I've built a nice, really cool, smaller community that way. But like, yeah, I probably turned away a couple of wrestling fans with my lack of wrestling content. But there's a big crossover though. There's a ton. I have an awesome community of people who they watch wrestling every week, but they're huge Overwatch fans or Destiny or whatever it is I'm playing or talking about that day. So there is, and I get it. Gaming and wrestling is there's a lot more crossover than I think people might expect.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of big name wrestlers that have their own channels and that have found success. Mainly, like you think of Xavier Woods and everything that he's done with G4 and all that. So, yeah, that I could see the difference there. I mean, musicians have struggled with it, though. I'll tell you that so
that's the thing. Like because I would imagine, especially Twitch. Twitch is such an interesting thing because everyone always talks about anybody who ever thought about streaming. They'll ask me and they'll be like, "Man, like I don't really know what games to play or anything. I don't really do it." I'm like, people always forget Twitch is not a gaming site.
Yeah.
Now, 99% of its marketing and its audience is kind of geared towards it, but it's not. At the heart of what it is a live streaming site. There is cooking streams, there are fitness streams, there are talk shows, there are podcasts, there are like ASMR. There's everything. There's a category for everything. So I'm like, you can go on there and talk about folding your clothes. You can go talk about fashion. You can go talk about your collections, whatever. It doesn't matter. So you don't have to do gaming, although that makes up a huge chunk of what they do.
Yeah.
So I can see if you're coming from somewhere, hey, you have a big following in music, social media is big for that and everything. Twitch is, again, there's a scene for it, but it's much smaller there. So I could see for something like that, it being a little bit more of a rebuild. Whereas I think, since I was going there to game anyway, that was an easy build for me to both newcomers and wrestling fans alike. So it was a little bit easier for that to build up.
Okay. So now I have a few like rapid fire gaming questions here. So you're playing a lot of Overwatch 2. I tried to play it when it came out and I couldn't. They wouldn't let me on. The game had some really bad server issues.
Oh, yeah. That was a rough first week.
Yeah. But what else are you currently playing that aside from Overwatch 2?
Yeah. So yeah, that's the big one. And I work with the Overwatch League team, the Houston Outlaws. So got to shout them out. Nice. Outlaws, ante up. But the other big ones. So I just started. So I know God of War Ragnarok just came out, right? I had never touched a God of War game.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And I don't know. I was always a PlayStation kid, but just it passed me by for some reason. And so I was like, you know what? I can't go back. I'm not going to play all like 6 like OG PlayStation 2, PlayStation 3 games. So I started with God of War 2018. So I'm playing that a little bit, and then I'm going to play Ragnarok. So finally, I get it, people. It's freaking cool. Yeah. Kratos is awesome and kind of a dick. But the other big like kind of live service game I play is Destiny 2. I just got into that a couple of months ago. And that is all consuming if I let it be. And I could literally sit in here for 12 hours a day just grinding it because it is that type of game. But other than that, I mean, I'm a huge Final Fantasy kid. I literally hunted down a PlayStation 5 just literally I play 99% of my games on PC, but I'm like, I have to have a PS5 for when the new Final Fantasy 7 remake games come out and the new Final Fantasy game. I'm like, if I get it just for that, it'll be worth it.
Yeah.
I'm sure there'll be other things, but so like that's the big one for me. But yeah, man, honestly, for me, it's the main games I'm logging in like daily, Destiny and Overwatch.
Yeah, Destiny, I was big into Destiny when it first came out, 1 and 2. All, had a group. We did the raids, all that. I tapped out pretty much, I think, when they broke off, I think, from Activision. And it wasn't because of that.
Oh, sure.
It was just kind of, there was a time where I had done everything. We did all the raids. There was no content. And they were reformulating things or, restarting. And I just never went back. And, but it was addictive as hell to those.
Oh, yeah.
There's nothing quite like those raids in
any
game.
I still haven't done one.
Oh man, they're just.
I got to do one. I know
they require coordination. People, 2 people have to go over there, and you have to hit something at the right time. So 2 other people over here. Like I'm fascinated by that concept. The only thing that comes even relatively close is the heists in Grand Theft Auto 5.
Oh, sure. Yep.
That's
essentially the same concept, right?
Yeah, it's the closest thing. We're like, all right, you go get the chopper. I'm going to go break the safe and, whatever, and then we'll meet up. And it's really awesome. But yeah, I mean, I've thought about going back to Destiny, but I can't. I don't know. There's too many other games to play.
I know. That's the other. I'm like, I want to get back. And I'm like, I miss single player game because I've gotten so into like competitive scene. Again, I'm big into esports and all this stuff. And so I love that live service and competitive games. But I'm like, I do miss like, man, just sitting down like with a single player experience. So I'm like, oh my God, I don't have time. How am I going to like grind out this battle pass and that battle pass and do that season objective and the new season of this? Oh, and this new single player game came out. And oh my God.
Ugh, and you got to convince, like you kind of convince yourself that like it's mandatory. Like I have to log in today to get my rewards or else they're going to go.
Right. or do my challenges or whatever. Like, I'm going to miss out on that bonus XP or whatever it is. And you're like, and that's how they get you. That's exactly what they want. They want you to feel like it is mandatory.
Yeah. Damn, I'm jealous of you with God of War though. Cause I'm kind of, I just finished Ragnarok. I'm not going to spoil it for anyone.
Okay.
Not going to spoil, but I'm on the side of, I've been playing God of War since the first one. And I feel like the game is not what it used to be. And for some people, that's great. But for me, I don't know, man. I used to play God of War because I would destroy giant monsters. And occasionally there was some boobies on the screen.
Sure.
They had like, I forget which one, 2 or 3, but he's like in the middle of an orgy. And I'm like, oh my God, this is so crazy. I've never seen this. And then now he's like an old man with a kid. And I'm like, it's like sad. I'm like, oh God, it's kind of like what happened to me with Marvel, with Endgame. Like I kind of didn't like Endgame because like I looked at Thor and Thor was like fat and drunk and playing video games. And I'm like, that's me. I'm fat and drunk and playing video games. I don't need to see. That's not why I'm
I don't
watching
want to
this.
see. Yeah, I'm watching this to escape that, right? Yeah.
So that's kind of like the mentality where I'm like, I don't need a mirror. I'm trying to find some crazy,
I know. It's like I had this debate actually with someone the other day about like the way we consume media. Some people, it is pure, like my wife is very much like it's pure escapism.
Mm-hmm.
I need something that is totally like different. I don't want to get real. I don't want to get like, I want something funny or action packed or something like that. And for a lot of people, video games is that, man, just visceral, like so fun play style, action packed scenes, all this stuff. It's escapism. I just want to live through that. Other people, I would probably say I'm on the other side of the fence. I like my movies. I like contemplative shit. You know what I mean? I like thinking about getting real, getting emotional. Tell me something deep, layered story. Let me go inside someone's mind. I like both, but like I can really appreciate that side of it. But I totally get it. We all consume media different ways and for different reasons.
Yeah, for me, it's different depending on what it is too. Like for movies, I do like obviously like think pieces and stuff that makes me contemplate, and art as well. Like my wife hates overly complicated artwork, like this piece over here where it's too much, too busy. And I'm like, I like that because I like to stare at it for a while and break it down and see all the little details.
Sure.
But I've also, I can accept and I enjoy movies like Fast and Furious where it's just, I'm just going to have a beer and there's going to be explosions and crazy things happening on the screen. And I'm, popcorn. That's fine. All right.
Damn right.
Back to gaming, rapid fire questions. We got what's your and I wanted to point this out. You were talking, you didn't see this, but Final Fantasy, I got a little Ultros right here from Final Fantasy VI.
There you go.
I actually worked at Square Enix for a time.
Oh, really?
For 4 years, yeah.
Doing what?
I was a game master.
What does that entail? I have to know.
So I think I could talk about this now because it's been a while. It's been about a year. So
yeah, you under any NDAs?
NDA's over now. But Game Master, as cool as the title sounds, it's not as cool as it sounds. It's basically internet police. And, there's Final Fantasy 14 is an online game. And they have people talking to each other, and sometimes they say very inappropriate things, and that's where I come in. I look at what they're saying, and I'm like, "Hey, you're breaking terms of service. Stop it!" And
so you're like community management a little bit,
kind of
moderator,
but they actually you're actually in the game, and you're like dressed up differently. Like no one can wear no one wears your armor. It's like a police uniform, and you take them to actual jail. There's a jail that you take them to. There's a little dungeon, and you take their character there, and then you just talk to them about whatever they said or did, and you issue whatever punishment based off of what their violations are, and then you either suspend their account for a while or you release them back into the world.
Wait, for real?
Oh, dude, it's wild.
So like, cause like, yeah, again, I'm getting into like live service and like, I haven't done a ton of MMOs. Like Destiny's kind of my first real. But like I would assume like if you break TOS, it's just like, yep, you're just booted and you can't log in or something. But they actually go through the process of sending someone in game to like drag it. That's great.
Yeah, the big MMOs, like to me, I don't even consider Destiny an MMO. It's like a MMO light, really. But like,
yeah, sure,
like a World of Warcraft or Guild Wars, like those games have that where it's like the GM goes, takes you to jail, sits you down.
Actually in game gets you. Wow, that's so wild.
And there's like other,
can people run?
No. There's nowhere to go.
Oh,
and also once you're in the actual, like you don't, maybe I shouldn't say intricate details, but once you're in the jail, you can't really do anything. Like you can't do any actions. So you're stuck in there. But it was really fun for like a couple of years. And then like the third and fourth year, when you're involved in something like that, I also did, one of my other jobs was process serving, where people break the law, and similar but in real life, people break the law and you give them court papers. When you're confronting negative things every day, it eventually gets to you.
I can imagine.
And I'm looking at some of the worst parts of humanity. Like this is internet. Basically, it's online. So you're seeing, racism, misogyny, bullying, and sexual things, and it's just like, oof. After a while, I didn't even want to play anymore. And that's what made me want to leave. I'm like, I don't even want to play games anymore. Like, I'm over it, But yeah, anyway, enough about me. Final Fantasy is awesome. I love it. It's one of my favorite series. Favorite genre of games?
So I have to say, oh, this is tough because like I've had a renaissance in the last like 3 years. Currently FPS. I really, really like FPS games. I didn't when I was younger. I don't like them on controller. I love them on mouse and keyboard.
Okay.
Love them. But if I go like that's my new renaissance. So like I do. But man, if I'm talking about from a kid RPG, single player RPG, again, old school Final Fantasy kind of kid, Secret of Mana, those kinds of
Chrono
things.
Trigger.
Oh yeah. So yeah, if I had to pick one, RPG.
Okay,
for sure.
Okay. Now, when you do mouse and keyboard, are you doing the G13 one-handed thing, or are you doing them two different?
No.
Two different things.
Just pretty standard keyboard. Yep.
Okay. What was your first console? Were you a Nintendo kid? Were you an Atari kid? Were you a Genesis kid or Sega Masters?
So yeah, I believe I had two older brothers, so like they kind of were the first to kind of. I had something, it was because they got it or they got it for Christmas, right? Something like that. I believe we did have original Nintendo, no Atari. We were not Sega people. We went from Nintendo to PlayStation, kind of both for a little while. Like I got up to Nintendo 64. Then I didn't do GameCube, didn't do Wii or any of that stuff. So Nintendo through N64, and then when PlayStation came out, I was PlayStation all the way through current.
Okay. All right. That kind of cancels out my next question, which was Xbox or PS5, but I'm assuming PS5.
I mean, well, yeah. So it's weird though. So like now, PC gaming came into my life post-pandemic or during the pandemic, right? So I was never a PC gamer. I literally, my first stream was from my PS4.
Nice.
Like directly from the PlayStation camera. But I've gone ass over tea kettle into PC gaming.
Nice.
And so the nice thing about Windows and PC is Game Pass.
Yes.
So like I'm kind of like a quasi Xbox guy now because I have access to so much Xbox stuff. Like I got really into Halo because I could finally play them. Because again, I was never an Xbox kid. So I never really, my best buddy is a huge Halo guy. He's been playing Halo for 20 years. So like when Infinite came out and I had a PC, we could finally play Halo together. So we still do that.
Nice.
Every so often, everything like that. So like, yeah, I'm kind of a quasi Xbox guy, but push comes to shove. Yeah. Still PlayStation.
Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of followed a similar path. Like I started with Nintendo. I did one time when the Genesis was still around. My family moved into a house and I found a Genesis in the attic, like in the box. Like somebody messed up, forgot their Christmas gift. I don't know what it was, but it was just there. And I'm like, oh man, I've never had a chance to try this because I've always been Nintendo. Let me try it out. And since that moment, like I don't care about console wars, even though it like dominates Twitter. If you look at gaming Twitter, it's all like Xbox versus the Sony ponies. And it's like, oh God, relax. Just play both of them. Well, what are you doing?
No kidding.
Why?
What's worse? Oh, hey, random, because you just brought it up. What's worse, Xbox versus PlayStation or WWE AEW on Twitter? What's worse?
Man,
what do you think?
I don't know, dude. They're both
That's
so
tough.
bad. They're both so bad. And it's funny because I see friends. I have a lot of musician friends, and they're like, "Oh, guitar tech nerds are the worst community," and I'm like, "That's because you haven't seen the wrestling community. They're the worst too." I don't know.
Oh my God!
If I have to pick one, I would say the Xbox versus Sony is a little more aggressive and like violent sounding. Like the people really go after each other. Wrestling too. Yeah. Not that that's any easier, but
sure.
But at least at the end of the day, I feel like in the wrestling Twitter world, there's always some people going, guys, it's just wrestling, enjoy it. Whereas,
and I think the advantage too is at the end of the day, like if you have TV, you can. That's all you need to watch both, right? In theory, the cable TV, I guess.
Yeah.
Whereas I could see it being a little bit more vitriol between because like most people, you can probably only afford, if you're going to get a console, you can afford one.
Yeah.
For a lot of people, if you're well off enough, you can get both. Great, but like for a lot of people, I got to make the choice. This, in the new, what am I going to invest in?
Yeah.
PlayStation or Xbox? I can only buy one. So I get like they feel, oh, we're not getting this. What the hell? You guys suck. Blah blah
Yeah.
blah. And then yeah,
I can't wait for the inevitable future of gaming, which is everything's going to be on a cloud, and you don't even need
Yep.
a console. Your TV has that Game Pass, and it'll have PS Plus as an app,
Yep.
and you can play everything
and
on your
yeah,
TV.
and every TV will have hardware like capable of playing everything,
Yeah.
high quality and all that stuff. Streaming the internet, internet quality and all stuff, and we'll all be top quality and everything like that. And then of course, when that happens, we're going to be streaming, 8K, 240 hertz from our TVs, like from the cloud, and people are gonna be like, oh, but like, why can't I just get it like transferred to my brain?
Yeah. There's always
At
going
like
to be
1,000 FPS.
there's always going to be a complaining element to it. It's wild, man. Like people don't like. Why are people complaining? We are so spoiled. Like,
Oh my God.
we have literally what we could call, Netflix of gaming right now with Game Pass. Like, you could just turn on
It's insane.
anything and it play instantly. Like, I could play on my phone and it like transfers my save files like automatic. Like, I don't even need to move. I don't need a memory card. It's just there.
Yeah.
So I'm stoked about all of it, and it makes people hate me because they're like, oh, you got to pick a side. I'm like, no, I don't.
No.
You gotta pick a side.
Absolutely not. Yeah. Apparently you do. Not me.
All right. So, first game you ever played. Whew. I remember mine.
I thought about this a little bit when you asked what the first like kind of console was. And so the earliest memories I have of like sitting down playing a game are probably the original Zelda on Nintendo.
The gold cartridge.
Yep.
Nice.
No, we didn't. Wait, did we have the gold cartridge? I don't. Did they only have gold? I don't remember.
I
what
think the
cartridge
first
was.
NES it was only gold. Like, I don't think
Okay.
I don't think it was a variant, like a special variant or anything.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Then I'm like, yeah. Then we must have. But yeah, the old side-scrolling red Link.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
So I'm sorry, and I don't mind. I know some people don't like talking about it, but how old are you?
No, 35.
Oh,
87.
Okay, that's why. All right, I'm a little bit older, not too much.
Sure.
41, but I did.
Okay.
I started with ColecoVision.
I was trying to think. I was trying to think of it when you were asking about the consoles. I'm like, oh, what's like the real OG ColecoVision? That's right.
Awful. That's
Oh
so
my
bad.
God.
I remember sitting when the Atari came out afterwards, thinking like, "Oh my God, the graphics." I could see E.T. Like, ugh.
Oh my God, it's so funny.
The worst game ever made. And all right, and then finally, if you were to pick your favorite series of games, I mean, you said already Final Fantasy, so I mean,
Yeah, I'd have to go. Yeah, Final Fantasy
okay, all right,
for sure.
all right. Now moving away from gaming, I have here Wrestling with Whiskey. Tell me a little bit about that. I mean, what got you into the idea of doing a whiskey thing, a show, and then, what prompted all that for you?
So yeah, for me, man, I remember it was when I was living in Orlando, working. Was I still in NXT at the time? I may have been just kind of right as we were leaving NXT. But I remember I didn't go out a lot, right? Like, so I didn't go, like, wrestlers like to go out. I was not a big going out guy. I did occasionally, but man, I did not like going out, pounding drinks, getting really drunk and partying, right? It wasn't my thing. But I was 23, 24, living on my own. And I'm like, I would like to have a drink. There's nothing I like drinking. I didn't like beer. I was not I wanted to think I could be a wine person and like be snobby. I'd be such a snob and connoisseur.
Great legs
But
on this one.
Right. But I didn't really like wine that much. I don't mind it, but I didn't really like it. And so I was like, I want to drink like an adult because I don't want to pound shots or anything. Like I would like to be able to sit, watch a movie or like sit with a friend or a date or whatever it was and be able to sip a nice drink. But I'm like, I've never been able to handle like liquor. Like that is fire water, right? But my dad was a big Scotch drinker, drinks Scotch neat and everything like that. So I'm like, I wish I could do something like that. I wish it felt stable and mature. and So I was like, all right, I'm going to teach myself to drink whiskey. I chose whiskey, and I'm like, I'm going to teach myself to drink whiskey neat, sip it, not shoot it, sip it. So I trained as if it was like the gym. I went and got a bottle of whiskey. I'll never forget it. Went to the ABC store in Orlando, Florida, got a bottle of Knob Creek single barrel, which is 120 proof, 60% ABV, which is pretty damn high.
Yeah.
And I'm like, if I can drink this, I can drink anything. And I sat on my couch every single day, not one small drink every single day. And I would sip with a little Coke Zero and chase it. And I would try to hold off as long as I could between sip and chaser. And just did that for weeks on end until I could finally put the chaser aside and just kind of stomach the drink on its own. And then between that and I was like, well, if I'm going to get into this, let's learn more about it. So like with anything, like we're talking about niche, be a nerd about anything, comic books, movies, games. Well, turns out whiskey's the same damn thing. There is a whole community on Reddit, Facebook groups, podcasts, deep dives, Twitter accounts, Instagram accounts, YouTube channels, right? All about whiskey geeks and like people who review it and collect it and talk about it and break down the mash bills and the producer and how long this has been aged, what kind of wood did they use in the barrel and everything. All the stuff we geek out about, collectibles or comics or sci-fi and all that stuff. There are grown men doing that about bottles of booze.
Oh, yeah.
And arguing with each other about it like children. It's fantastic. So that between finally just teaching myself to be able to do it and then getting just deep into the community and like learning everything about it, it was just really cool. And again, it was another thing, man. It was just a nerd out kind of moment. I was like, whoa, there's just so much more to this than I thought, other than just like big companies pumping out booze.
Yeah. The
process of it is cool. The community of it is very, very cool. And then I did become the snob, but it was just with whiskey. So now I could pick out notes, and I do talk about the legs. Legs are very real. Okay, Eddie?
I know.
Don't make fun of legs. You want some good legs on your whiskey.
No, I know.
Nice, good, thick, oily legs, baby. Give me the legs on my whiskey. So it's just another rabbit hole of nerddom that I got to dive down.
That's awesome, man. Yeah, I mean, I appreciate a good whiskey, a good scotch, a good bourbon. I'm mostly the beer guy. That's what the B in RRBG stands for. Because I also discovered that same element that you found. I found the community. I found the bottle shares. I found the fact that
craft beer.
Yeah.
Dude, huge.
Yeah. And then and it's actually kind of intertwined a little bit in the community where there are people getting rare beer bottles that they'll go to a special release or something, and then they'll trade it for bourbon, like rare bourbons.
Oh, yeah. Yep. I've seen it.
A lot of crossover there. So what would you recommend for someone that wants to get into drinking whiskey or bourbons? I mean, would you recommend starting with Knob Creek like you did, or would you go somewhere else?
No, I'm a sadist. I'm a glutton for punishment. And that came from the wrestler, like athlete thing where like, I'm going to go into the gym and push, right? I thought of it like gym training. Like, I'm going to lift heavy, baby. You got to gain size. You got to lift heavy. But no, for most people, I absolutely would not, because you weren't like me where I was boneheaded and stubborn. Most people, they're kind of timid about it and they want a good experience. I wanted to be like punched in the face.
Right. Yeah.
So for most people, I would say, dude, start light. Even start. It's weird because it's like it hurts me as like a purist, if you will, for whiskey, but like because I don't like flavored whiskeys.
No.
Like you know what I mean? Like your Jack Honey or your like Wild Turkey Honeys, and they're not real whiskey.
Yeah,
they're not.
It's easy to drink. Yeah, that's all.
But if you've never ever had whiskey and you want to get into whiskey, I'm like, look, try the Screwball, try the honey whiskey, try the cherry. Just because but drink it neat. Like, don't throw it in a cocktail with soda and all this stuff. Just have a sip of that. And if you're like, that's okay, then maybe try like a simple 80 proof Jack Daniels. You know what I mean? Try an 85 proof Jim Beam. Work your way up, because proof is a big deal. And dude, some of those, like now I can drink 100 proof like water, but like at first they don't 100 proof.
It hurts.
Punch most people in the face.
Yeah,
it'll knock their socks off. So let alone 140 proof hazmat cask strength bourbon. So yeah, I just ease in, start with something light in flavor, or cocktails are great too. To start with the classics, old fashions, Manhattans, or even a whiskey sour, which is a little less whiskey forward, but still kind of, again, if this is for people who've you've never had a whiskey drink, you've only had beer or very little, and you just want to try working your way in, start with the flavored stuff or cocktails, and then work into low proof, neat pours.
Yeah. I mean,
and drink with good friends, man. Drink with good people who might know a little bit more and can educate you, and then have a good time with.
Yeah. Yeah, that's important. The community aspect of it. You don't want to, I always had a problem with that. I have a bunch of bottles and I just don't drink alone because it's just, I feel sad. I'm the sad alcoholic at home drinking all this stuff. But yeah, the community aspect is important. But that's funny that you mentioned the training your palate kind of thing. It goes for everything. My wife has a hard time with coffee. So I'm trying to get her, I don't want to get her into it, but also just, I don't want her to just think it tastes like poison. So I'm here, try this coffee ice cream or something, something that'll ease you into that world. Beer is the same thing. I prefer a bourbon barrel aged stout that's 18%. But, I know some people are going to just drink a sip and die immediately.
Yes.
So,
yep.
You got to start them soft, just ease your way into that. So that's good.
Yeah.
That's good advice. What would you say is your favorite whiskey in terms of brand? I know that's a hard one.
That is a tough one. That's oh my God, is it back here? I'm oh man, it changes too. Cause some years these companies go on a roll. They put out some incredible releases. Sometimes the brands suffer oh man, this one used to be really good, but the last couple of years they've been kind of so. Generally speaking, I will always say this. To me, probably the most consistent brand in American whiskey from a quality standpoint, as well as a kind of accessibility and price standpoint. Because there's a lot of brands, because bourbon has exploded over the last couple of years. It is like you're talking about people were with craft beer and stuff. Dude, with some of these bottles, the way people trade them for hundreds and hundreds and thousands of dollars, it's crazy.
Yeah,
because it's been very trendy and everything. But a lot of time, as companies get like that, the prices go up and up and up. But one company that has maintained incredible quality and a really accessible price point, Wild Turkey. Wild Turkey, I still think 101, which is kind of I've seen by a lot of people, is oof, that is it's high proof and it's cheap, and it's a lot of people's that's the stuff that messed me up in college and everything. But dude, if you learn whiskey and you learn Wild Turkey 101, even though it's a $25 bottle, is really high quality whiskey. It's a great mash bill. It's actually pretty well aged. It's not like some young rot gut they throw on the market and charge you nothing for it. So between that, their Russell's lineup, which is pretty accessible as well, super high quality. So good. Dude, Russell's, I gotta stop saying this on air, man. I'm silly goose. Russell's 10-year bourbon is one of the few age-stated 10-year bourbons on the market that you can find in a lot of cities and stuff. $40 in a time when 10-year bourbons are going for $200-$300 depending on who's making them. This one is sitting on my grocery store shelf for $39.99, and it is fantastic. So then, just across the board, they've been for decades and decades and decades so good. One of my favorite newer brands, which it's an old name. The company, the name Michter's, is a 200-year-old name, but it's been resurrected in the last 15 years. They have got a really great approach to making bourbon in this new age too. I really love the stuff they've been putting out.
Nice. Okay. Josh Barnett actually put me onto Russell's. Really? I wasn't aware of, I had never tried it. And he's like, for the price, this is insane. I'm like, yes. Okay. All right. Have you had Josh's bourbon?
No, so I met him. I was talking to him about it. I met him at a New Japan show and I have not had it. What is it? War Pig or something like that? Or
Warbringer.
Warbringer, yes.
Yeah, he has a Warbringer. So Warbringer is a bourbon that they make at that distillery, Cespa Creek. But he has his. It's called the War. It's a lot of war. The War Master Edition of Warbringer.
No, I do want to try it.
It's good. It's hard to find, and pretty pricey, but I think it's worth the price tag, comparatively to what I've had out there for that price range.
Sure.
So, but I recommend. I was gonna say, like, if you don't know Josh, you should get to know him. He's a big whiskey and bourbon guy.
I know. Yeah, like I said, we had a great chat about it. I love the fact that because I asked him like the hard hitting nerdy stupid questions because I'm like, it's a newer company. I'm like, so are you guys like actually making it, or are you wholesaling it from another company or something like that? He's like, no, it's like they're making it according to our recipe, the stuff like that. So I'm like, oh, that's actually pretty cool. Like we're making it, we're aging it, we're doing all that. So hats off to that.
I've seen him actually, do the grain build and all the things. So it's a legitimate thing. And, I'll tell you, but when we sign off, I'll tell you a little thing that I'm not supposed to talk about yet, but we'll talk. And then finally, I wanted to talk about mental health with you. I wanted to see where you're at. It's a big topic these days, especially in our community, because we're exposing ourselves basically every day online, streaming, gaming. You're in front of a screen a lot. And, I've talked to a lot of people where the effects of the internet and social media and all of that really does mess with your mental health. And I want to see where you're at in that world in terms of, is it affecting you? Are you feeling that the social media exposure is actually, detrimental to you?
I can't say like, it depends, man. It sometimes it does. Yes, absolutely. I think I count myself extremely lucky. I won. I'm trying to think of I want to say whether I don't know what it's from. Whether it's I got the parental lottery and because I had a pretty good upbringing, right? Or whether it's something in my DNA or whatever like that. I luckily have a pretty good head on my shoulders for cutting out the noise. I'm pretty good at it, but I'm not perfect at it. And it does get to me. I know some other people in our industry, especially in show business in general, who it's they know what they're getting. We all know what we're getting into. We know we're going to be in the public eye. Social media is a huge thing. So it's even though that, dude, sometimes when you get hit with a cavalcade of criticism or just harassment and stuff like that, even though you're I know these are just people trolling or whatever, it's your head can tell you that, but man, your gut and your heart still get hurt, and it still hits you and it kicks you in the gut, man. And it can, and like I said, luckily through whatever means I've been able to be pretty good with that. But even I have my days where it's sometimes, and I'm embarrassed to say it, sometimes one comment, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Even though you might get 100 people saying this is awesome, and sometimes that one person is you're a effing joke or whatever it is.
And you dismiss it immediately, but then hours later you're it's still swirling in there. And you're what is that?
Yeah, and that's I think we all struggle with that. The idea of man, again, you can hear 100 positive things, but the one negative thing, and I think it goes to the same. There's a reason, troll and hate posting get so much engagement. That is a human thing, man. We flock to that attention wise. Even even when it's directed at us, everybody could be cheering us on, but you get one or two a-holes, and that weighs on you more than the hundreds of people behind you. We have this predisposition to taking in that negative energy sometimes. I think that's across the board. So it's really hard to fight. So it helps. It really helps having a good support system. Luckily, I am married. My wife is amazing, and we both lean on each other for that stuff. So especially I feel for the people who live on their own. You know what I mean, like that, and who do have to go through that, and sometimes don't necessarily have someone in their immediate life that they can lean on. That's where friends and family, or your chosen family, whoever that might be, is a really important thing to have. I think grounding yourself in that, because that's one thing we've noticed. I have a weird phenomenon, and I absolutely love this. And I hope you have, if it's not this example, I hope you have someone or people like this in your life, because we do that. We're in, dude, so much of our lives is social media. Me and my wife, we're getting worked up, we're getting busy, we're traveling, we're doing all this. We notice it's building up. We're getting snippy with each other, all this stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
My mom calls. She goes, "Hey, come over for dinner," or whatever. They live out in the suburbs, and we're kind of half fighting already. We go out there, we decide it's that awkward thing where it's like, all right, we're here, we have to stop arguing or whatever it is, kind of thing, right? We go in, have parents. We don't talk about that. We're talking about my aunt and our dog and my family dog and what my cousins are up to and the stupid thing the neighbor did. And then 3 hours later, we drive home and it was like, like that. It was like a reset. It's just like getting out of that and connecting with real people, important people in our lives who just kind of, they take you out of that. Like, hey, holy crap, all that BS that we built up from like the work stress and social media and all these little nitpicky things that have been bugging us the past like 2 days, it goes away. I don't know, like getting out there like this, it sounds sad, but man, just getting back out there sometimes and connecting with people, with your people, your friends, your family, especially when we spend so much of our lives online and on these things, right?
Yeah.
It gets so in your own head, so internal. You internalize everything. So if you have a group of people to get out of that with, get out of your head for a little bit, dude, it puts everything in perspective. A couple hours later, and you can be like, man, wow, that really wasn't a big deal. I feel refreshed. So finding those humans in your life who can refresh you like that is amazing.
Yeah, I agree, man. And it's something that I've been dealing with in the last few years. Obviously, it kind of spiraled out of control during the pandemic, like it did for a lot of people.
Of course.
And also, within our group of friends, and peers, we have wrestler friends. Don't talk about that as much. And there's, be a man and just walk it off, rub some dirt on it, yeah,
exactly.
Yeah. And it's tough because it's not just like the negative comments. Like that's obvious, that's bullying. Like we've had that since childhood. We've had bullies talk crap to us, but there's also like the work stress stuff that you mentioned, when especially someone in your position where you have a job where you're on TV and all that exposure, but on top of that, you're creating content, you're streaming, you got to stay on top of your social media stuff and you got to stay on top of your branding. And you're always, you get into, am I posting enough? And, did I put the right tags? Like that kind of stress is also mental health. Like that also messes with your mind. And like you said, it'll trigger some kind of argument for nothing with your wife or your loved ones, So I think it's important to talk about that. And if you don't have a group of friends, video games, playing online with people, even though there is a lot of toxic people playing video games.
Of course. But I was just about to say, of course there is, just like anywhere on the internet, all this stuff we're talking. But I've also, dude, I've met so many people and I've talked to so many people who be like, man, I like literally have created like 2 or 3 like friend groups, like people, actual like friends who I've met through communities in these gaming. A lot of them, like I've met a bunch of people. I just had a great experience. Same thing, because I got into the whole streaming and especially Overwatch and everything like that during the pandemic. And so when I got into the esports scene, there were no live events going on. They were just kind of hanging on, running online stuff and everything. And I was getting into it. But then just this year, they finally had a huge in-person event and I went to it. And it was like, I met all these people that I had like met over the last 2 years. And like, now I finally met them in person and like stuff like that. But like I had created these relationships already with them through gaming and online and everything like that. So that's not to say that, you can't find these people. You can't find those supportive groups or whatever in this online age. You can. It's just, it depends on, where your niche is, where you kind of find yourself.
Yeah, man. Well, thank you so much for your time here today, man. Matt, it's been a pleasure, getting to know you. I've been a fan of your work for years, just watching you on TV and everything. So getting to have a conversation about, how you work internally is, it's an honor, man. So wanted to thank you again and let my listeners know and watchers and viewers and fans or whatever you want to call them, let them know where they can find all your stuff. I know you have a lot of stuff.
No, I absolutely appreciate it. Thank you very much for having me on this. This was super fun. Excuse me. So yeah, I mean, it's pretty simple for me. Drama King Matt, man. Pretty much on any platform you go, Instagram, Twitter, Hive, are we still trying out Hive for a little while now?
Yeah,
Just in case. Just in case. Twitch, YouTube, Drama King Matt, man. You know what I mean? And then if you're into whiskey, if that sounds interesting to you at all, same thing. Wrestling with Whiskey on both YouTube and Instagram.
Nice, man. Well, hey, have a good rest of your day, and I hope we can run into each other at some point in real life and share a whiskey drink for sure.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you again so much for having me.
All right, man. Have a good one.
You too.
Cheers.